Indeed, you are. Indeed, you are. Very welcome along to the program. It is very great to be back. Indeed, I hope you are keeping well for this Monday night. Yep, beautiful weekend. The weather wasn't too bad, all the same. Anyway, it is the Recovery Concept with Kieran Murray on 96.4 Liffey Sound FM, your local access radio station for Lucan and surrounding areas. I was nearly going to say the name of another radio station. I'm getting a lot of things mixed up today, getting very, very tongue-tied. But anyway, we won't dwell on too much. I have a couple of things I want to talk about today. I don't have a guest today because, well, I have a guest next week and I have an interview recorded. So that's all good to go. And it's a really, really fascinating one and a really, really interesting one, okay? Now, I am going to stick this up on TikTok, the start of this show up on TikTok before it goes out on air. So I'm not going to do the whole thing, I'm not going to do the whole show, but I just wanted to mention now what is being talked about. For the TikTokers, Monday night, this is so confusing for people, I know. TikTok, Monday night, going to be doing 12 steps, going to be talking about the 12 steps of recovery. So yeah, if you're listening to the radio on Monday night, you'll hear the 12 steps of recovery. But anyway, I'm just letting the TikTokers know that. Anyway, where do I want to go? So where do I want to start? So I'm going to do the first step now, okay, before I move on. But before I do that, I want to put some new music on, don't I? I'm always happy when I have my music. Ooh, let that play there. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Yeah, now music is working. Everything is working out fine, so that's grand. Okay, so what is the first step of recovery? Well, the first step of recovery in addiction circles is we admitted we are powerless over our addiction, and we admitted we were powerless over our addiction and our lives had become unmanageable. Now, the first step obviously is a two-step part, and it's a huge step. It's the biggest step. It's the widest step because why? It's the first step, and it's where it all starts. It's where it all begins. All that jazz, all that old ding-dong. So that's just something that's important to remember. So if you are somebody that's listening to this show now and you are struggling to get into recovery from whether it be an addiction or you're getting yourself well from your mental illness, you've been suffering with depression, anxiety, all that stuff, and you've been getting yourself well and you're learning to manage your mental health, Obviously before you would have been powerless over it, so the behaviours and all, negative behaviours and all would have been there, all that sort of stuff. So you're learning to manage because the life has become unmanageable. So the second part of the step talks about unmanageability. When it comes to any illness that there is no cure for, because let's just face it, there's no cure for addiction. A lot of mental illnesses there's no cure for. There's a lot of diseases out there there's no cure for, but there's treatment, there's remission, recovery, and that's what that is. So acceptance is an important part of this step, okay? So it's not just about accepting the problem, it's accepting yourself and every fibre of your being and what's actually going on in your life. So that's another thing that's really, really important about this step one. Now, obviously, look, it can be a hard step to get at the time. And look, it's only the first one. So you have to make sure you go easy on yourself. Now, I'm mentioning mental health and things like that in this because it's topics we cover on this show. And there's an organisation out there, Grow Mental Health. They're very good. And they are a 12-step programme. And they're a group fellowship. So I have to say fair play to the people that do that. And I can't think of the guy's name that started it. He's an Australian man. Apparently he was very eccentric and he went to AA meetings actually. Now it's funny actually, a lot of people that are in AA tend to go to things like CA, NA, GA, all them. So people do go around different fellowships. So they may not have the issue that's being focused on in that fellowship, but they will, it will be relatable, they'll relate in some way. Their issue might be as relatable. So let's say, for instance, you're somebody that was a coke addict and then, you go to an AA meeting, a lot of the same behaviours are going to apply from the alcoholic and the coke addict, because addiction is addiction. Addiction behaviours are addiction behaviours. And that's why, I mean, if you look at the likes of this whole wokeism, the Karens, all that stuff, that's pure addiction behaviour. I want to speak to your manager behaviour. I want this, I demand that. Me, woe's me, what about me, what about my needs? Negative behaviours, all those negative behaviours are there. So it's just, I suppose it's about practicing mindfulness. And by the way, I just want people to know, when people talk about, behaviours and things like that, people tend to think that people are getting onto them. Someone pulls someone up on a behaviour or something, and this is not pulling you up, by the way, but when someone is pulled up on a behaviour, they're not, they think they're getting given out to, but they're not. They're just being, shown or told. I try to look at it and think of it as, do you ever say to somebody, dude, your fly's open, or something like that? It's kind of like that. So be mindful of that stuff. It's not a bad thing to pull people on their behaviours, if it's affecting you. Now, sometimes, obviously, look, circumstances dictate. Life is not black and white, you have to be careful, obviously. Anyway, where am I going to next? Just what else can I say about that step one? Because, I mean, it took me a long while to get it, because I had to accept, okay, that I have a disability, that I have a visual impairment, that I suffer with a mental illness. I accepted all those three things. I'm not well at the moment. I'm whatever else going on. So I accept that. So how do I accept it? By managing it. Looking after myself, making sure, I'm doing the right things, taking the right steps, using the right tools. I have plenty of tools there. And of course I will share them with you at any time. If you need help with anything, if you ever need to talk. And look, I don't know everything. I'm not perfect. I just know what I've been taught. So I know enough to know. I know sweet FA. That's the best way I'll say that. And yeah, okay. So step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now, just before I move on, by the way, I just want to trick back really quickly to that step 1 really quickly. Where am I going? Yeah. So, step 1 requires participants to admit personal powerlessness when it comes to managing the addiction. So yeah, pretty much what I've said. It requires the... Now, I don't like this word, and I don't like when people say this. It requires you to admit defeat. Now, I have to say, I'm always talking about language on this show, and the unfortunate thing about 12-step fellowship programs is there can be a lot of language that seems negative, but it's not necessarily negative. It's, how do I explain it? Because I'm making absolutely no sense here. It's like it's negative in a positive way. So they basically ask you to admit defeat, okay? Now, look, I'm sorry, but if you're addicted to drink, or if you're addicted to any drug, or sex, or whatever the case may be, that addiction is going to lick you. It's going to destroy you. It's going to take you apart. It's going to beat you down to your rock bottom. So, yeah, look, I'm done. And look, you're going to come across things in life where you're not going to win. Arguments you're not going to win. You have to have your boundaries. You have to know when to stop down. So previously on the show, I was talking about boundaries and things like that and how they're important. You have to admit that. There's got to be fighters, and some of the best fighters in the world have turned around and said, I know there was one famous example, and I can't think of it. I don't know, but at the moment, I can't think of it. But I know there was one boxer that said, look, I'm not going to beat him. I can't beat him. Well, not that I can't, but look, he's better. He's just a better fighter than I am. And that's okay. So there's always going to be people out there that are better than you, that at some things. There's going to be other people. There's going to be people that are not as good as you at some things. you're going to be better than other people at some things. Other people are going to, it's all the one. Everybody has their things that they're good at, that they're bad at, all these different things. Everybody has things that they can do that other people can't, or that other people can do that they can't. They're unable to. I don't like using the word can't. That they are unable to for whatever reason. There's unfortunately limitations there. So you have to go around it. And this is why we talk about disability on this show, because we talk about workarounds, working around limitations and things like that. Because I think those things are very important. But anyway, I'm rambling on here. What do I want to do? Step 2. So I want to talk really quickly about the second step, okay? So came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Because you know what? We know absolute FA. Again, I need to stop saying that on the show. I know. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm not saying the word, so I don't care. But anyway, yeah. So, look, I've talked about on this show about the concept of the higher power, higher or greater power. Now, I know Guru calls it the greater power. Now, that can be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be God or Allah or Buddha or whatever one of the mainstream religious deities you believe in. It doesn't have to be one of them. You could be atheist. And look, 12-step programs do turn around and cater for everybody. So they do cater for people that are agnostic or atheist or whatever. There's actually a chapter in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous called Chapter to the Agnostics. So just that's there anyway. So if you are agnostic, maybe you can believe the universe is your greater power, Maybe you can believe that, I don't know, your family, your children, your parents, your partner, your whatever, your best friend is your greater power, something greater than you, And when it says greater than you, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's better than you, that something is better than you, someone is better than you. And I am being very careful how I talk about these steps, because I know people have done these 12 steps and have suffered bad depression or have taken their lives and things like that. So I do want to be very, very careful on what I say. And I also, by the way, the greater power. So let's talk about the greater power. Look, even if it's not a greater power, it's admitting as well. Let's get real here. It's admitting, I need help. I need to go to treatment. I need to go to a therapist. I need to go to the doctor. I need this, whatever. Think of it that way if you're that much of a realist. Think of it that way, So I need help. That's what this basically is. The long and short of it is, I need help is what I'd say about that one. So now participants have admitted defeat. They are encouraged to turn to a greater power other than themselves. This invariably means no, it doesn't mean God. Don't be. That's false information on that there. So it doesn't. That's I'm not going to look at that again, because it's not. I'm not going to put false information out on the air. Okay, so number three is important. This is encompassed with step 3. Okay, so made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of. Okay, this says God, as we understand him. But look, that's a template. Once again, it's a template. The God can be anything, God can be anything. So, when you can think of it as, when someone says, oh, that person's my rock, or, something like that, something is my God, whatever, one of those type of things. I don't want you, see, the point here is I don't want you getting too fixated on the whole God concept. It's a wreck the head, okay? But look, we turn our lives and our will over. So we go and we get help. So we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of the greater power as we understand them. So, all right, my greater power, my higher power is a God that's up there. I don't know who it is. It's in the universe. I don't know what it is. I have a couple of them. I have my family, I have my friends, I have my partner and her daughter. Those 2 women are 2 greater powers for me. They're part of they're my main inspirations, and they're part the reason I'm kind of here, you know. So yeah, I love those people very much. Okay, so right, I don't want to go on to 4 just yet. But you're after asking for help. So that's done there. Where am I going now? Why isn't that working for me? So yeah, so just on that step 3, just to clarify, okay? You've gone looking for help, okay? You've asked for the help. Okay, so before I go on to step 4, right? And I also want to take a quick track after the break as well. But I'm going to take this quick break. I'm going to end the TikTok, and